Up next is a panel discussion on future-ready flexible packaging and what are the challenges that center on a circular economy. I would like to invite Mohd Ujaley, Senior Assistant Editor, ETGovernment, to moderate the discussion. Over to you, Ujaley.
Hello and very warm welcome to ET Retail Supply Chain and Packaging Summit 2022. In this special panel discussion focused on future-ready flexible packaging and the challenges that circular economy faces, we will try to explore the impact of pandemic on packaging industry, how packaging industry could meet the sustainability goals, and some of the innovation that is happening within this space. To lead the discussion today, I'm joined by Mr. Dinesh Batra, Head Packaging Consumer Supply Chain at Reliance Retail, Dr. Sanjay Goyal, Vice President Supply Chain at Lite Foods, and Mr. Sanjay Gupta, Vice President DS Group. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. And let me begin with Mr. Batra. Uh, Mr. Batra, during the pandemic, what we observed that most of the sector faced some type of challenges. I would like to understand for me, what kind of impact have you noticed on the packaging industry during the pandemic? And if you could share your general assessments.
Thanks, Mohd, for putting this question. I think after this pandemic, the packaging industry see a very vast change in terms of innovations, in terms of requirements increasing multiple fold. If I specifically mention about due to pandemic, consumption trends have increased a shift, and shift has been seen in the flexible packaging a lot, because everyone sitting at home during the lockdowns wants to have the foods in their homes, not moving out. So the requirement of food industry, the requirement of packaged foods basically increased, and because of this increase, the shift on packaging industry has a lot of pressure in producing and selling those packaging materials, and all the packaging requirements has increased throughout the pandemic. Specifically because of the food packaging, as for the personal care products like sanitizers, hand wash, and all, the packaging industry increased multifold due to the pandemic effect. And the winner in this packaging requirement was clearly the flexible packaging, because if you have noticed, because before lockdown or before this pandemic, most of the states or the government of India tried to do this plastic ban around because of this littering and all. But right, ultimately the need arises out of the immediate rollout of products and all. So most of the companies either switched back to plastics because this was the ready material, the kind of properties it offers, the kind of structural performance, the branding it offers, no other packaging material can offer. So the real winner in this pandemic came out to be a plastic packaging, or the flexible packaging, I would say rather. And this created a lot of churn around the plastic flexible packaging. That's why the pandemic clearly shows the importance of flexi packaging in the packaging industry overall.
Right. Now I'll go to Mr. Goyal. Mr. Goyal, as Mr. Batra was saying that during the pandemic, most of the industry faced problem, but for packaging industry, it came like a boon, and repackaging material was actually accepted by people a lot, and it was adopted. Would you like to share your views as to how you look at the impact of pandemic on the packaging industry?
All right, greetings to everyone. So yeah, there was a huge, shift, as Batra Sahab said, during that time, because the consumption at home started happening, whether it is packaged food. So I come from a restaurant line. So there was no dine-in there, for practically everything was shut. And so the home delivery kind of picked up, and that was the only way people were ordering food, and it was being delivered at home. So, all of a sudden there was the huge spike in demand for packaging for food delivery. So what I realized during that time is that there was a kind of this was a big disruption for our industry. And then we were used to of serving guests in the restaurants. Now we were to serve guests at their home. And one challenge what we realized during that time was there was no sustainable packaging for food delivery, so we had to rely on plastic, unfortunately. So what happened is that there was a disruption between demand side, and there were constraints because of that on the supply side, leading to volatility in the rates, leading to supply side issues in terms of because of the huge spike in demand for food delivery packaging. So that was the learning from the pandemic side of business and an impact on packaging. So we
Right.
are still working on the solution on sustainable, which is going to take time. But that was a huge learning, and now things have stabilized.
Absolutely. I'll come back to you again, and obviously we'll talk about the sustainability in the second round. Mr. Gupta, I'll come to you. What has been your assessment of pandemic impact overall on the industry?
Yeah, hi, good morning to everybody. First of all, I would like to give some data, I think, which will help everybody to understand the packaging as an industry. So if we see, packaging is the fifth largest sector in Indian economy. So we just can't undermine this industry. And the Indian food and grocery market, it is the world's largest sixth industry. And Indian packaging industry is growing at a CAGR of 12 to 15%, wherein flexible packaging is growing at 25% and rigid packaging at 15%. The Indian food processing market is 32% of country's total food market. So I think packaging importance, and especially after pandemic have largely impacted consumer behavior. Lockdown restricted mobility had profoundly impacted the post-COVID consumption habits. We have seen some of the sharpest decline in demand for certain types of packaging while accelerating growth for other. So it was totally uncertain, and at that time, agility and resilience were two factors which were very important for everybody to feed this so large economy.
Absolutely.
So I think it is very important, and in the time since pandemic, consumer landscape concerning preferences, choices, expectations, desires, brand loyalty. This is very brand loyalty. When there was a lockdown, so we were forced to buy anything which was available. So brand loyalty was taken a hit at that time. Then price point, consumption pattern, buying method, shopping experience, repeat buying. So everything has changed. Or moreover, these further sentiments and awareness towards sustainable packaging have also increased manifold. So in nutshell, if we can say, it is important to note that manufacturing, logistics, storing, warehousing, inventory norms, aging, credit, supply chain ecosystem has also observed a significant transformation. So this pandemic has really gave us a lesson in terms of packaging, because packaging was the one sector which had grown in spite so much of dip in GDP of every country, because everybody was looking forward for a safe and packaging. And especially when I connect with the economic factors, when there was a GST coming in, unorganized sector were transforming into organized sector, awareness has increased, people were sitting at home, they were upskilling their knowledge and knowledge bank. So they were key on a hygiene level. So this pandemic has completely changed the total landscape in India and abroad, what I can say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Batra, I'll come to you. Very important 2 points Mr. Gupta raised, especially around the resiliency and agility of the industry, which were witnessed during the pandemic. And also, the choice where people became very hygiene friendly and very conscious of hygiene. And that brings us to the sustainability part, which is one of the core focus for the brand, because brand would like to achieve the sustainable goal that they have set in voluntarily. As a industry leader, I would like to have your views on what are the key drivers that packaging industry leaders need to focus on to meet the desired sustainability target that we all have been talking about.
Key drivers, I mean to say here, I would like to highlight some drivers basically which gives more impetus to this sustainability aspect of overall packaging or achieving sustainability by brands, producers, organizations, FMCG companies, or the organizations who are working in packaging industry as either producer or they are a user of packaging basically. Uh, the first and foremost is the consumer awareness itself. The consumer awareness about packaging, littering, plastic waste management, everything has grown up during these times now because of the brands coming up with their ideas, setting up their goals, sustainability goals in itself is and putting their brands and relating their brands to the sustainable packaging or the sustainable ways of producing anything. This now ingrained into the mind of the consumer itself. Now consumers are that they are going back to the brands and saying that we want sustainability. Like if you look at Amazon, if I say the consumer when getting at home, now they're posing problems or the challenges to the Amazon, the where what should I do with this plastic when I'm receiving as a plastic in my shipment. So basically consumer awareness has increased. Second, now the government has also started replying or responding to the public outcry here for the plastic waste or the nuisance it has created around. So if you look at the ocean, see how much is going deep in the oceans itself. Now the organizations, NGOs have started taking initiatives. Government is starting giving a response in terms of making the guidelines around sustainability or the plastic waste management itself. Now, if you see it from 2016 to 2018, in fact, now also to 2021, there is a lot of amendments has been done. And now government officials who are making these guidelines, they are also putting a lot of deep dive studies, deep dive thought process, what is to be done actually to stop this nuisance or as a plastic packaging itself. Because you can't avoid plastic. In today's scenario, there is starting from a needle to a spoon or everything, whatever we are, or a packaged food, everything made up of plastic. And it is absolutely no way to make this out from our life. Now, these are the two key drivers. If I say now, if I want to win a customer over this, because customer is already aware about sustainability now. So as a brand, as a responsible brand or organization, I need to react, to act in cognizance with the knowledge of the consumer behavior. And I need to create acceptability of my brand, my product in the mindset of the consumers. So
Right.
that is where the becoming the more key drivers. And because of this government initiatives, now it is somewhere mandatory also to do the extended producer responsibility, whether as a producer or a manufacturer or the user. And moreover, as a brand owner, as an organization, we are responsible to our environment, our planet Earth. So it is from the as a responsible to human life itself, we are now considering
Right.
as it is giving us a very a crucial role to play to save our earth, to maintain the green aspect of my earth, and to leave something for our future generations, so that there is no shortage and they should not be worried about that there is no greenery around them and everything is taken care by our ancestors and all. So the aspect of sustainability
Right.
is now taking a lot of impetus, though this sustainability word in the industry is there almost for now 8 to 10 years. But
Right.
last 2 years or 3 years, I've seen lot of pressure or lot of pull has come from the market itself to work towards sustainability, whether it
Right.
is a paper bags replacing plastic bags, whether it is natural resource packaging materials coming into to change the conventional plastics or the conventional way of packaging processes, whether it is a light saving, whether it is a material saving, whether it is a process saving, everything leads to a one goal, which is sustainability in my view.
Mr. Goyal, sustainability, earlier you also spoke that it has become some way a very integral component for any brand, and especially for organization that deals in the food product, it's become quite paramount. And what Mr. Dinesh Batra is saying, that there is awareness within the consumer now that they want the sustainable product, they want sustainable packaging, they want actually those things. For you, what are the drivers actually? Why you as an organization would look for it? Is it just only the compliance? Is it that world is talking? And is it the good thing to do?
Yeah, so at Lightbite, our leadership team is very mindful about sustainability, and so we were pioneer. We started about 3.5 years before these government guidelines came in on plastic, etc. And we had taken a hit because sustainability comes at cost. One has to be very, very careful that we want to adapt and adopt good practices. So we started in our QSR format and dine-in about 3.5 years before, when no one has had thought of in our sector to start using sustainable packaging. So that we have been practicing for a quite long time now. For last 6 months and 1 year, especially during pandemic, when the shift started happening for delivery, as of now we have not found a complete solution for sustainable packaging for delivery of food. We are still on plastic, but we are very close to find a solution, and in March we are doing a pilot for sustainable packaging also being used for food delivery. So in our company, as a thought process, as a philosophy, we believe in doing good things. Good food must go in a good packaging, which is good and safe for the planet. It's not that food should be safe, it's also that the entire package or packaging, the way it is, should also be safe for the planet. So that's how our philosophy is. So it's not because government is putting compliances and regulations and then we shift to, and that's how I think the all the companies have to think about it, about the planet. And it should not be government driven, it should be
Right.
organization driven. And leadership team should be mindful about the need of the hour, how to make our planet safe for future.
Mr. Gupta, would you like to add?
Yeah, I would like to touch upon the basic point basically, because there had been a lot of discussion on what waste management has said, what organizations are doing, what we should do. I'm just giving a food for thought for everybody. Uh, when we're talking about sustainability and climate change, so with our current rate of advancement, humans can sustain collective lineage while maintaining the ecological climate. If we produce material, infrastructure, and technology, we do not sustain forever, complete their life cycle, and die their own like us. At the contrary, we feel proud to have innovative most of the material meant for our livelihood. We do not have any life cycle and remain on our planet and environment for a perpetual time without realizing that there is a limit and capacity of this planet to carry it further. As this planet is carrying a load beyond its capacity, instead finding a genuine panaceas, we spend millions and millions in finding another planets for our livelihood. So, and this pandemic is a live example that nature punishes us whenever we abuse it. Rainforests are shrinking. 20% Amazon has disappeared in last 50 years. 90% of seabirds have fragmented plastic in the stomach. There had been deforestation of an area larger than South Africa in last 25 years. The reduction of forests contribute to about 12% of carbon dioxide emission. Sea level has risen about double in last 20 years. And this is very, I think, very
Right.
alarming that each year about 80 million tons of plastic end up in oceans, which is equivalent to a full garbage truckload every minute. So
Right.
overall humans, we people have consumed about 30% of the known resource as we move towards more degraded planet. So now I'm touching a very, very basic point of when we're talking about day before yesterday, RBI has released monetary policy. Fed has is revising the interest rates. So everybody is concentrating on that. But I strongly believe that this is a good time to think. Is it wise to invest all of our resources in creating a financial wealth of a nation in terms of GDP, FIIs, FPIs, liquidity and rating without creating value chain to save the ecosystem? And when nature punishes us, we invest all this wealth to save this race. पहले हमने पैसा बनाया, सब खर्चा किया, invest किया, and then we are investing all these things to save the race. Right. We just can't save this planet, and we are finding another planet. Science is very important. So what I'm saying, it is crucial to think whether the conventional yardstick to measure the economic performance of a nation by GDP-based growth model is leading to fast depletion of natural resources and wealth. So the world is heading towards ecological credit crunch.
Absolutely. I think you are right, because what you are saying, that there has to be a balance between the growth that we are looking at and how actually we would like to achieve that growth and the kind of impact that it will have on our environment. That brings me to the next question, and I'll go to Mr. Dinesh Batra. Mr. Batra, let's look at the fact. The fact is that you can't completely get away with plastic, and all plastics are not waste. Within plastic there are different kind of molecules, and it could be used in a different way. So maybe a very thin polyethylene could be very disastrous for the environment. It can't be recycled. And what Mr. Goyal was earlier saying, that the recycle has come into the picture. Mr. Gupta also spoke about as to how actually we can reprocess the plastic that we are producing. And what government has done recently, so far it was not allowed to recycle plastic and use for the food product, but recently there was an amendment to the plastic waste management that is known as Second Amendment Rules 2021. And it has enabled recycled plastic to be used for the food packaging. Now that brings two types of challenge for a packaging industry. One is there is a greater view of polymer scientists that if you actually recycle plastic for food packaging and use it, there are chances that some of the particles, some of the additive chemicals could migrate to the food. That could create a food hazard, a kind of challenge. Second is that you do not have a very formal way of recycling. I mean, your ecosystem in terms of formalization and the technology is slightly weak. So your checks and balance are not in place. Mr. Batra, I would like to understand from you, how do you look at this recycling of plastic for the food item and having an informal sector around?
Yeah, just to take on this, say, as you mentioned, plastic waste is basically not a waste. It's basically a resource for a human being here, because it can be recycled, it can be put into a different use, it can be made other article from the same material. So because plastic is not, it is called as a plastic, but it is basically a gold mine where you can reuse, recycle multiple times. There is no life to it. If a plastic can remain on the earth for thousands of years, the same can be reused multiple times to bring into the human use itself. So looking at that aspect itself, the basic funda of sustainability, or to manage the plastic waste management itself, basically to make the triple R's, or now it's a 5 R's principle, wherein reuse, reduce, recycle, reprocess, and all those aspects of R, which we talk about in sustainability and the plastic waste management. Recycle is the reusability of the plastic becomes a more crucial here. Why I'm saying is this, because when you reuse the plastic, basically, or when you recycle the plastic, no doubt there may be concerns of additives, plastics migrating from the perspective of food packaging. If I talk about, then there may be some concerns around it, but there are ways to counter that concerns also. The way, suppose if we are using multi-layer packaging, MLP systems, wherein it's a different layers of packaging, which is difficult to recycle it. But if we use monolayer films, monolayer with high barrier properties, these are easy to recycle and uh, without posing problems to the current infrastructure itself. Now there is a need for high end or the highly organized sector to recycle these plastics, because definitely when government is allowing for usage of this in a food packaging itself, there we need to be more hygienically, or the processing of these plastics to be taken care with utmost care, because the consumer is going to directly ingest taking out from the plastic packaging, and there are a lot of additives being added into and so we have to look into making those additives also eco-friendly, or the additives from eco-friendly sources, additives to be human consumable additives, water-based additives, those kind of additives. A lot of development is going into that aspect also. Can we change the attributes of additive itself, wherein it doesn't pose any problem to the human health? The third way of looking at it is, can we use some recycled content, not the entire replacing the entire plastic packaging with the 100% recycled content, but at least we should be able to use 10%, 20%, 30%, or whatever the level of percentage we can increase that. This can be done by either just by changing the laminate structure, or we can change it sandwiching the recycled content between two virgin layer films also. There also I'm reducing 1/3 of the virgin plastic itself. So, so concerns are genuine, whereas these are the challenges. Basically, I will say not the problem, but these are the challenges which can be addressed by looking holistically, or with the polymer scientists which are there, which helps us to develop new polymers around it, and new materials can be derived out of. Who earlier, say if I look at polyester, if I say polyester was a very highly used plastic bottles, if I say a lot of plastic. Now, nobody on earth or in India, if you say, you will not find even a plastic bottle written around, because the entire plastic polyester bottles are getting recycled. Not even a single bottle will find across, because now the people have find a ways to make yarn out of it, and then lot of the fabrics are coming out of it. Lot of, so Reliance itself has launched Reliance as a brand, which is catering to the every industry. It's clothing, fashion industry, whatever industry you can talk about. So even most of our delivery bags are also made from the recycled PET bottles. So the emergence of one supply chain asks for the requirement, or where we can counterbalance the other inputs from the other supply chain itself. Now, if you say there is a lot of demand of the PET recycling, same way we have to create an ecosystem for other polymers like LDP, PP. So if I look at the global scenario, polypropylene recycling council has been established, wherein all people are talking about how to recycle polypropylene itself. Because polypropylene has higher barrier properties, structurals and heat properties, which no other material offers that kind of suitability for food packaging, whether it's a tub for yogurt or tub for ice creams, all made up of polypropylene. So those kind of initiatives are already started coming in. Concerns are genuine. At the same time, there is a lot of scope to address those concerns and solve this issue.
Dr. Goyal, your views, especially around the current infrastructure. See, the government has allowed actually that the plastic could be recycled, and even it could be used for the food packaging. But within the food packaging industry, there are some concern around the safety and security and additive actually migrating to the food product. And that is why there is a lot of thought process going on. What are your views on the current infrastructure that we have to recycle the post-consumer packaging waste, and how some of the concern around around migration of the particles could be addressed?
Right. So I think it's very important point, so while I completely agree that recycling is important and recycling should be done, but and I also feel that there are a lot of sector other than food where it can be used. So my thought would be that the first priority should be to use it in probably personal care or other kind of, like Batra Sahab said, in terms of carry bag or things like that. But when it comes to something coming directly in food contact, right? I still strongly feel that since most of the packaging industry for food business, package business, especially in our sector like restaurant business, is in unorganized sector, right? So where we are not sure of what kind of a quality controls or checks and balances which are there to prevent that migration of contamination happening with food. That is something very important. Either we first set the very tight guidelines, we allow big players to come in where we have better checks and balances so that there is no migration or contamination to food. Otherwise, food safety has to be first point in our mind, and then only we should allow the recycling plastic to be used in food in per se. Definitely in future, yes, but I think more than allowing plastic for food, we should look at innovation and technology to bring in new products for food packaging,
Right.
and recycling can happen for other than food. That's what my view. So my view is entirely different in terms of, I do not want to risk the food safety at the cost of
Absolutely.
recycling. In the
I
especially in the current scenario where unorganized sector may cut corners, may not have desired checks and balances and control systems. So that is what is my concern right now.
No, you're absolutely right. I think there are some concern around, especially use of recycling plastic for the food items, and some of the areas that you have touched upon is yet to be in a right way replied, and that is why we see that the response to the adoption is bit slow. Mr. Gupta, would you like to share your views as to how you look at using recycling items for a food packaging, or maybe a packaging where food item is coming in contact with a plastic item?
Uh, I would like to touch upon three basic points.
Right.
First is compliances are very important, but compliances should not become a burden on any business, wherein whenever we are talking about sustainability, and all these business models should become unsustainable. So we need to find a balanced approach how these compliances can be adopted by the industry with some expense, so that ultimately everything should not be passed on to the consumer.
All right.
Second point, I strongly believe all of us from packaging fraternity see packaging only from packaging point of view. But this is very high time to see packaging from the consumer point of view. Because whenever we are designing packaging, so we always see what is the MVTR, what are the barrier properties, what is the shelf life. So we generally think the normal attributes of a packaging. So I think we need to shift, and we have shifted from there. We are engaging when we are designing jar. We are indulging structural engineering to that. How many ribs should be there? What is the angle of the rib? I'm just giving an example. So we are engaging people from different fraternity so that mindset has to be changed. Third
Right.
point, globalization, which was the prosperity of Indian in the last 2 decades, wherein there had been a lot of transfer of technology, movement of people, movement of machines. But after this pandemic, this globalization has taken a hit, and we are again coming back to deglobalization or a localization or a regionalization, so that movement of machines border has been closed. Logistics issues are great. So my point is that now India is a manufacturing hub, but we should admit that we are not at fast pace in terms of innovation, in terms of development. So as DS has invited, it is high time to engage premier institutes like Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Packaging, CPET, and other large scale innovation companies in US and Europe, so that innovation takes a big leap in a little time. We don't have much more time with us. We are engaged with one company in Israel. So I think these are the very important areas. So if we keep on depending only on converters, so it will take a very long time because there are certain business angles into that. And
Absolutely.
third point, which is very important, India is one of the youngest nation. When we are talking about the millennials, the Z generation, which are above the age of 26 and 40 years, and India will remain the youngest nation till next 30-35 years. And when the Boston Consulting Group has done a study, then they found that this young generation is willing to pay more money, but they are green responsible. They say that sustainability is a trend. It is a mindset. So they are the deciding factor for the future. So the brands which are working on this at a large pace, they will get benefited in the future. Otherwise, we will get a backseat. So my only point is, as we say, there are four pillars, whereas we are saying human, social, environmental, and economical. All these pillars have to come together.
Absolutely.
We need to escalate the innovation at our end.
Right. I think 2 points you raise very important. One is that uh, packaging is not only about packaging. I mean, if you pack it, it's also about making product affordable. It's also about the quality and sustainability. Mr. Batra, now I'll come to you. The fact is that the recycling is a good thing to do. And as Dr. Goyal said that maybe we can be a bit slow with the food item, but there are different industry available where it has a huge case to apply the recycled product. But in India, as Mr. Goyal earlier pointed out, that packaging and recycling is still, I mean, more than around 60% is dominated by informal sector. Large organization such as Amul and all, and maybe some multinational companies might have their own checks and balance in place to look at as to how the recycled product is being sent to them, how they are using it. But that is not the case with the informal sector. And even for food item, you have FSSI, which actually looks at the quality. But using the recycled product, even for food or for any other thing, you do not have anybody right now which can actually certify and say that it is good. Within the industry, I mean, there is nobody right now. So do you see there is a need to formalize the sector and also bring high-end technology, as Mr. Gupta was saying, high-end technology and collaboration with academia and then some of the developed nation to boost the circular economy that we want to achieve by rotating things, using it, not wasting it?
I think this is the right time because government is opening up the gates for using the recycled content in the food packaging. So that this becomes very imperative that we should have a body who checks how we are reprocessing it, how we are comparing it with the virgin plastic itself. So what are the properties of the films or the packaging materials we are compromising on, how this material is going to behave when it comes in and interact with the food item itself. So I think there should be a collaborative efforts by the food technologists along with the packaging technologists so that they come in on the same page. Yes, your packaging and my food, they are friends now, and they are not basically interacting in a bad way. They are basically supplementing each other, and they are taking the product to the shelf or to the consumer in a right manner, the way it should be received by the consumer, it should be consumed by the consumer. So there are multiple aspects of packaging recycling, if I say, because packaging is not only a film or not only a polymer, it has inks on it, it has various resins inside it, it has a when it is getting it is getting processed on the machine for the packing, or it comes across a lot of heat and pressure, and then changes happens in the polymer itself because of the nature of the polymer itself. So everyone who is working in this field has to have a holistic view how this recycled content or the recycled packaging material is behaving on their packing lines and how it is behaving on this. So just to control this, it's the right time to have some authority or the government council who certifies this kind of, as you rightly mentioned, there is a FSSI is there, there is a packaging technologies team is there who are certifying this. There is a CII who is doing a lot of things in recycling and circular economy. So there should be a body who certifies that how much recycled content goes in a friendly manner with that kind of packaging or the food items. What kind of food items can be packed up to what level of recycled content? So if that is there, that will be a must to have, I think, aspect of recycling. Or and then introducing organized sector will give a boost to this kind of recycling or circular economy, because now the consumer as well the brands will be more confident of using these recycled packaging materials.
Absolutely.
If there is, because today in formal sector you can have some checks and balances, like you mentioned about Amul and big organization can have their own internal checks and balances to certify those packaging materials. But what about those stores or the small industry players? They cannot afford to have. So if there is a body around it, they definitely will have a confidence to use it, using these, and customer will also have gain confidence. Yes, these are the brands or these are the sectors. Now the packaging materials are also coming in a certified manner to these food processors or food packaging companies, and we are getting in a certified food and packaging materials, a combination of both. So it is easy to say, easy or safe to use.
Absolutely. Dr. Goyal, your views, especially around having promoting the formal sector in recycling and also having a body which can actually certify and give a quality audit for the brand to use it.
I think well said by Batraji. I think he has articulated it beautifully that, food technologies and packaging technologies, they have to come together and we can make a regulatory body and guidelines, and, they can be a certifying body. As FSI is an overall body for food, but I think they are not the right agency to certify or govern the packaging side of it. So I think 2-3 institutions can come together, food technologists or packaging institute, and there can be a council or a regulatory body assigned who can come out with the compliance and guidelines, and that body can be a certifying body for recycled plastic to be reused for food, especially for food industry. So rest of the industry, the risk is minimal. If I use it in non-food industry, risk is minimal, but food industry, food contamination and migration is a kind of a risk. I think that's a brilliant idea. If that happens, we can use it food also, because food is a big sector. Non-food may not be able to consume the entire recycled plastic. So that's a brilliant idea. I think if this can reach to the government in some way, at the government forum, it can be implemented faster.
Yes, Mr. Gupta, last word to you.
I will still say that there had been many bodies who are working on this line, like CPCB, CII, especially CPCB is working on drafting the guidelines for waste management. But I strongly believe that representation from the industry is very, very important. We are a member of CII, SPICI, ASSOCHAM, but we keep on struggling to present our points to the bureaucrats. So if we keep on playing very defensive, so then it is very difficult to win the game. It has to be offensive as well as defensive. So business has to run. And as everybody knows that there had been a lot of cost escalation in the last 1.5 years because of total supply chain disruptions across the world. And everything is becoming very expensive. And ultimately, any corporate or any consumer has to bear this. And moreover, if there are compliances are also there, so we need to work in the compliance in a phased manner, so that everything is being implemented, being checked, being verified, but not only from the government bodies, but from the other forums also, so that everybody should feel that they are also owners of this whole idea.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Dr. Goyal, Mr. Dinesh, Batra, Mr. Sanjay Gupta, thank you so much for being such a wonderful panelist and sharing your views on future-ready flexible packaging and the challenges that circular economy faces. I think you all spoke quite well as to how during the pandemic, the demand and supply for packaging, flexible packaging has increased like never before. And also your views on achieving the sustainability goal that most of the brand has set in, what are the key driver for them, and also the government decision to allow use of recycling product for food item and the kind of safeguard that we need to take care of before actually we delve into it. And I think Dr. Goel actually highlighted those things quite well. And also in the end, your views on having a formal recycling sector, having a body which can actually certify and can bring a kind of trust for using the recycled product for different sector and especially for the food processing. So thank you so much once again for being such a wonderful panelist. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for such an interesting discussion. Thank you to all the speakers for sharing valuable information and for sparing your precious time for this event. Definitely, we are taking learnings from this event. The solutions and the advice will help the businesses to grow. Thank you to the audience for being so interactive. Thank you to all the partners for joining us and for all the support in making this event happen in a successful way. Thank you to all of you. Log on to etretail.com for all the latest updates and events. See you soon with a new event and a different theme.